Admiral James Thorne stood alone in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, a solitary human figure surrounded by towering structures of gleaming metal and crystal. Overhead, the vast dome displayed the stars of 1,000 systems, worlds that had never known the touch of human hands. The chamber itself rose in concentric rings, each tier filled with the representatives of different species that formed the most powerful political body in known space. "Human," spoke the chief counselor, a tall being with iridescent skin that rippled with colors as it moved. "You stand before the Galactic Council as a representative of a provisional member world. Your petition for full membership rights has been received." James kept his expression neutral, though inwardly he marveled at the grandeur around him. The Earth Diplomatic Corps had prepared him extensively for this moment, but no simulation could capture the overwhelming sensation of standing before representatives of over 300 species, most of which had been spacefaring when humans were still discovering fire. "The Council acknowledges Earth's rapid technological advancement," continued the chief counselor, named Viridian according to James's briefing files. "However, we find your species' development concerning." A murmur rippled through the chamber. James noticed several representatives from the Orion Arm delegation shifting uncomfortably. Earth's recent expansion into their traditional territories had not been well received. "Concerning in what way, Counselor?" James asked, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's perfect acoustics. A different council member rose, this one a massive, slug-like creature with clusters of sensory stalks where a human might have a face. "Humans have developed faster-than-light capabilities in less than 3 centuries after discovering atomic energy. This development curve is unprecedented and potentially destabilizing. Ambassador Grell speaks truth," added another counselor, a being composed of what appeared to be interlocking geometric shapes of living metal. "Your species has militarized technologies meant for peaceful exploration. Your colonization efforts have expanded beyond your granted territories. Your mining operations in the Kuiper Belt violate Protected Species Protocol 7. James listened carefully, noting which species seemed most hostile to Earth's interests. The briefing had predicted resistance, but not this level of coordinated accusation. "The Council has voted," Viridian announced, silencing the growing chorus of complaints. "Earth's petition for full membership is denied. Furthermore, the Council has deemed it necessary to impose restrictions on human expansion." On the massive screens surrounding the chamber, a detailed map of space appeared with Earth's current territories outlined in blue. A new boundary appeared in red, significantly smaller than their current holdings. "These are your new permitted zones," Viridian explained. "All human colonies and installations beyond these boundaries must be dismantled within 1 standard cycle. Additionally, your faster-than-light research programs will be placed under Council supervision." James felt his pulse quicken, but his diplomatic training held. "The United Earth government sent me with full authority to negotiate our membership terms. Perhaps we can discuss alternatives that—" "This is not a negotiation, Admiral Thorne," interrupted a bird-like being with brilliant plumage. "This is a security measure. Your species has repeatedly demonstrated disregard for established protocols. The Arcturus incident alone justifies these restrictions." James straightened his shoulders. "The Arcturus incident was a misunderstanding. Our survey ships had no way of knowing. Ignorance does not excuse the destruction of a 3,000-year-old monitoring station," hissed a reptilian counselor. James paused, studying the room carefully. Something was wrong. The level of hostility seemed disproportionate to Earth's supposed infractions. He thought back to his final briefing with Fleet. Command their warnings that certain council factions might be deliberately provoking a confrontation. "I respectfully request time to consult with my government regarding these terms," James said carefully. "Denied." Viridian responded immediately. "The Council requires your acceptance now. Earth's rapid growth poses an immediate security concern that cannot await further deliberation." James felt the trap closing around him. Accept these terms and humanity would be effectively contained, their expansion halted, their technology controlled. Refuse, and the Council would have justification for more direct intervention. "I see," James said quietly. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small device, a simple communication unit that had been carefully screened by Council security. Permitted because it was deemed harmless. The Council guards tensed but did not intervene. Admiral Thorne to Earth Command, he spoke clearly. Implementing Protocol Sundown. Authentication code Thermopylae. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Viridian leaned forward. What is the meaning of this? Your communication devices are permitted for status reports only, not. A deafening alarm cut through the chamber, as the massive screens displaying star maps suddenly flickered, then changed. Now they showed real-time footage from across Council space. Orbital defense platforms shutting down, fleet command centers going dark, communication relays failing. 3 years ago, James explained calmly as chaos spread through the chamber, Earth's deep space intelligence detected a pattern in Council communications. Evidence of a coordinated effort to restrict humanity's growth, not because of any violations, but because several elder species feared our potential. We hoped diplomacy would prove these suspicions wrong. On the screens, more systems blinked red as they went offline. Not destroyed, simply disabled. Admiral, what have you done? Demanded Viridian. All pretense of diplomatic courtesy gone. I've activated a network of quantum disruptors that Earth has been secretly placing throughout Council space for the past 18 months, James explained. They target only military and communication systems, not civilian infrastructure. Each one is approximately the size of a human thumbnail, easy to conceal on routine merchant vessels. The guards were moving toward him now, weapons drawn. James continued speaking. The United Earth government wished to join the galactic community as equals. Instead, you plotted to contain us, to control us. You left us no choice. This is an act of war, shrieked the bird-like counselor. Yes, James agreed simply. As of 7 minutes ago, when you refused my request for consultation, Earth has formally declared war on the Galactic Council. A sudden tremor shook the station as external defenses went offline. Through the vast viewports, James could see Council warships drifting powerless, their engines disabled by the same quantum disruption affecting the station's systems. You cannot possibly hope to defeat the combined forces of 300 worlds, Viridian said, though his tone lacked conviction. We don't want to defeat you, James replied. We want to talk. Real negotiation as equals. Your ships aren't destroyed, just temporarily disabled. Your worlds aren't under attack. This demonstration was merely to show that your technological superiority isn't as absolute as you believed. The chamber had fallen silent now, hundreds of alien representatives watching as their carefully managed political order was upended by a species they had dismissed as primitive barely a century earlier. Earth has prepared for this contingency for 15 years, James continued. While you monitored our official research, our shadow programs explored scientific principles your cultures abandoned millennia ago. Different paths, different solutions. Through his earpiece, James received confirmation that Earth's fleet had moved into position around key Council worlds. Not attacking, just establishing presence. Here are our terms, James announced to the stunned Council. Recognition of full sovereignty, non-interference in our development, fair access to trade routes and resource-rich systems, a genuine voice in Council affairs. Viridian's skin had faded to a dull gray. And if we refuse? James gestured to the screens showing disabled defense systems across Council space. Then we move to Phase 2, he said simply. In the tense silence that followed, the galaxy's most powerful governing body confronted an uncomfortable truth. They had gravely underestimated humanity's resourcefulness, determination, and willingness to protect its future, by any means necessary. The war had begun with not a single shot fired. And that, perhaps, was the most frightening realization of all. Captain Diana Reeves stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching as her stealth flotilla slipped into position around Nexus Station, the central communications hub for the entire Galactic Council. 3 weeks had passed since Admiral Thorne's declaration in the Council chambers, and the initial shock of humanity's bold move had given way to the grim reality of interstellar conflict. All ships report ready, Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced from the tactical station. Quantum disruptors maintaining coverage of Council military frequencies. Diana nodded, her eyes fixed on the massive structure floating before them. Nexus Station resembled a gleaming metal snowflake, its dozen arms stretching outward for kilometers, each bristling with communication arrays and data processing centers. Built by the ancient Vordani civilization, it had served as the nervous system of galactic government for over 2,000 years. and Diana was about to capture it with just 6 ships. Council security vessels? She asked. Still disabled, Rodriguez confirmed. Their backup systems are coming online more quickly than anticipated, but they're still at least 30 minutes from operational status. Diana allowed herself a thin smile. The Council's renowned technological superiority had proven surprisingly vulnerable to humanity's unconventional approach. While alien civilizations had pursued ever more efficient energy production and faster-than-light travel, Earth had quietly explored quantum disruption, technology the elder species had abandoned as unpredictable centuries ago. "Boarding teams ready," announced Commander Alexei, her second-in-command. "Waiting for your order." Diana took a deep breath. Phase 2 of Earth's war plan was the riskiest, direct engagement with Council forces at their most critical installations. Not to destroy them, but to control them. "Launch boarding shuttles," she ordered. "Minimal force protocol. We want the station intact and its personnel unharmed." On the main view screen, Diana watched as 12 sleek black shuttles detached from her ships and accelerated toward Nexus Station. Each carried 20 soldiers equipped with non-lethal weapons and specialized hacking equipment. "Captain," interrupted her communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the station. Audio only. Put it through." A harsh, clicking voice filled the bridge. "Unidentified vessels, this is Station Director Krelvex. Your ships are unmarked, but our sensors detect human life signs. Cease your approach immediately or face destruction." Diana leaned forward. "Director Krelvex, this is Captain Diana Reeves of the United Earth Fleet. Your defensive systems are currently inoperative, and your security vessels have been temporarily disabled. I suggest you stand down and prepare to receive our boarding teams." A pause, then. "Captain Reeves, surely you realize the consequences of this action. Nexus Station is neutral territory under the Galactic Concordat of 17453. An attack here will unite every spacefaring species against Earth. This isn't an attack." "Director," Diana replied calmly, "it's an occupation. No harm will come to your staff if they cooperate. Earth requires temporary control of Nexus Station's communication network." The boarding shuttles had reached the station now. On secondary screens, Diana watched as her teams breached external airlocks and entered the massive structure. Initial reports indicated light resistance, mostly automated security systems that the Earth hackers were quickly overriding. "You cannot possibly hold this position," Kralvex insisted. "Even if you take the station, the Council fleet will respond in overwhelming force." Diana smiled grimly. "Director, the Council fleet is currently scattered across 17 sectors, responding to simultaneous Earth operations. The nearest significant force is 3 days away at their maximum speed. By then, our mission will be complete." The truth was more complex. Earth's small fleet couldn't possibly engage the Council's massive armadas in direct combat. Instead, they were executing what military strategists had dubbed Operation Shadowhand, simultaneous strikes at key infrastructure across Council space, never staying in one place long enough to be trapped. "Director," Diana continued, "I recommend you order your staff to cooperate. We have no desire for casualties." Another pause, longer this time. Finally, Kralvex responded, his clicking speech pattern notably subdued. "Very well, Captain. Security protocols are being suspended, but I must register a formal protest against this violation of galactic law." "Duly noted, Director. My teams will take control of the main communication hub immediately. Your staff will be restricted to non-sensitive areas but otherwise unhindered." As the transmission ended, Commander Alexei approached Diana's command chair. "That was easier than expected," he murmured. "Almost too easy," Diana nodded. "Keep alert status at maximum. The Council has had 3 weeks to prepare countermeasures against our quantum disruption technology. They may be playing for time." Reports flowed in as Earth forces secured key sections of the station. Within 40 minutes, they had established control of the central communication nexus, a spherical chamber filled with crystalline computer cores that processed data from across the galaxy. Diana left the bridge to inspect their prize personally. Escorted by a security team, she made her way through the station's elegantly curved corridors, noting the mixture of fear and curiosity in the alien staff they passed. Most had never seen humans in person before. The central nexus was even more impressive than the intelligence briefings had described. A vast spherical chamber with walkways spiraling around a core of pulsing light. the physical manifestation of the data flowing through Council space. Dr. Eliza Chen, Earth's foremost expert on alien communications technology, was already at work with her team, interfacing human computers with the alien systems. "Captain," Eliza greeted her, barely looking up from her work. "Fascinating architecture. The Vordani designed this system to be intuitive rather than secure. We've already gained access to 70% of the primary networks. How long until we can implement the broadcast?" Diana asked. 2 hours, maybe less," Eliza replied. "The translation matrices are more complex than we anticipated, but nothing we can't handle." Diana nodded, surveying the chamber. "And the data extraction?" Eliza grinned, finally looking up from her console. "Already underway. Everything the Council has ever tried to hide from us. Ship deployments, classified technologies, diplomatic secrets. It's all here, Captain. The Intelligence Division will be processing this for years." A sudden alarm interrupted them, followed by Commander Alexei's voice over the comm. "Captain, return to the bridge immediately. We have a situation." Diana hurried back through the station, tension building in her chest. When she reached the bridge, the main view screen showed a Council diplomatic vessel approaching, broadcasting identification signals on all frequencies. "They're requesting permission to dock," Rodriguez reported. "They claim to carry a high-level negotiation team authorized by the Emergency Council." Diana studied the vessel carefully. It was a standard Council diplomatic ship, unarmed with minimal defenses. Scans showed only 12 life forms aboard, consistent with a negotiation team. "It could be a trap," Alexei warned. "They could have something our sensors can't detect." Diana considered the situation. Earth's war plan had always been designed to force the Council to negotiate, rather than to achieve total victory. If the Council was already sending diplomats, perhaps their strategy was working faster than anticipated. "Allow them to dock," she decided, "but security protocols at maximum. Full scans of everything they bring aboard, and limit their access to the diplomatic section only." 30 minutes later, Diana stood in Nexus Station's conference chamber as the Council delegation entered. To her surprise, the team was led by Viridian, the same chief counselor who had confronted Admiral Thorne 3 weeks earlier. "Captain Reeves," Viridian greeted her, his skin shifting through patterns of blue and green. "An unexpected pleasure to meet the commander of such a bold operation." "Chief Counselor," Diana acknowledged with a nod. "I hadn't expected the Council's highest authority to deliver their response personally." Viridian made a gesture that Diana interpreted as rueful acknowledgement. "These are unprecedented times, Captain. Your Admiral Thorne has forced the Council to reevaluate many of our assumptions about humanity." "And have you reached any conclusions?" Diana asked, maintaining a neutral tone. "Several," Viridian replied. "Most importantly, that we grievously underestimated your species' ingenuity and determination. The Council believed that our technological advantage was insurmountable. We were wrong." Diana gestured to the conference table. "Please sit. I believe we have much to discuss." As the delegation took their places, Diana received a silent update through her neural link from Dr. Chen. "Broadcast system secured. Data extraction at 89%. Ready on your command. The Emergency Council has authorized me to offer terms," Viridian began. "An immediate cessation of hostilities. Recognition of current Earth territories. A 5-year transition to full Council membership with limited voting rights." Diana listened carefully, noting what wasn't being offered. "And our technological development? Our expansion rights?" Viridian's skin rippled with colors Diana couldn't interpret. "Some oversight would still be required, Captain. The Council has responsibilities to maintain galactic stability." "Oversight," Diana repeated. "The same oversight that was secretly planning to contain and control." Dr. Marcus Blackwood moved silently through the dimly lit corridors of Facility Omega, Earth's most classified research installation buried deep beneath the lunar surface. Alarms blared in the distance. The Council counterattack had begun earlier than expected. "Status report," Marcus demanded as he entered the central command hub. A circular room dominated by holographic displays, showing the unfolding conflict across 12 star systems. Director Elena Vasquez didn't look up from the data streaming across her console. "Council forces have broken through our quantum disruption network in the Arcturus sector. They've deployed something new, some kind of adaptive field generator that neutralizes our disruptors." Marcus frowned. 5 weeks into humanity's war against the Galactic Council, The initial advantage of surprise had begun to fade. The Council's vastly superior resources were finally being brought to bear as they adapted to Earth's unconventional tactics. "What about the Nexus Station broadcast?" he asked. "Captain Reeves deployed it 6 hours ago when the Council missed the negotiation deadline," Elena replied. "Every inhabited world in Council space received the full data package, all their classified directives, including the containment protocols for Earth and 7 other emerging species." Marcus watched the tactical displays as red indicators multiplied, Council warships regrouping, moving with purpose now rather than the confused reactions of previous weeks. "And the response?" "Mixed," Elena sighed, finally looking up. "Some worlds are demanding emergency council sessions. Others are rallying behind the central authority. There's significant unrest in the Outer Rim, territories where most of the targeted containment species are located." This had been the gamble of Phase 3, revealing the Council's secrets to destabilize their political unity. But Marcus had hoped for more widespread outrage, enough to fracture the Council's ability to present a unified military front. "Dr. Blackwood," called out Lieutenant Park from the communication station. "Priority message from Admiral Thorne. The Council has deployed their 7th Fleet toward the Sol system. Estimated arrival? 16 hours. Marcus felt the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. The 7th Fleet was the Council's premier strike force. Over 300 warships, including 5 dreadnoughts. Earth's defensive forces couldn't possibly repel such an armada. "They're done negotiating," Elena said quietly. "This is a punitive action." Marcus nodded grimly. "Then it's time for the contingency. Activate Project Prometheus." The command center fell silent. Project Prometheus was theoretical, untested, the most radical application of humanity's quantum research. "Marcus," Elena said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "we don't know if it will work. The simulations were inconclusive. And if it fails, we face the 7th Fleet with conventional defenses and we lose," Marcus replied. "The Council will make an example of Earth to prevent any other species from following our lead." Elena held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll inform the science team. We'll need at least 10 hours to bring the system online. That leaves us a 6-hour window. Not comfortable, but enough." Marcus turned to address the command staff. "This stays compartmentalized. No communication with the fleet or civilian government until we know it works." As the command center erupted into controlled activity, Marcus made his way to the lower levels of the facility, where Project Prometheus was housed. The elevator descended for nearly a minute, passing through multiple security checkpoints before reaching the deepest section of the lunar installation. The project chamber was a vast, spherical space dominated by a complex array of quantum manipulation equipment, surrounding a central containment field. Inside that shimmering barrier floated what appeared to be a small tear in reality itself, a rippling distortion about the size of a human hand. Dr. Naomi Wright, the project's lead scientist, approached as Marcus entered. "We've begun power-up sequences," she reported. "But I need to register my formal objection one more time. We're talking about manipulating the fundamental fabric of space-time on a scale that's never been attempted." "Objection noted," Marcus replied, his eyes fixed on the reality distortion. "What's our best projection?" Naomi hesitated. "If it works as theorized, we'll create a localized distortion in the quantum substrate that underlies normal space. Within that distortion, the laws of physics, specifically the constraints on faster-than-light travel and energy propagation, will be temporarily suspended. And the effective range? Based on our test results, approximately 3 light minutes in all directions from the focal point." She gestured to the holographic display showing the planned deployment zone, just beyond Mars' orbit. "Every ship within that sphere will be affected equally." Marcus nodded. The strategic implications were enormous. Council ships relied on highly efficient but rigidly calibrated drive systems and weapons. In a zone where physical constants suddenly shifted, those systems would fail catastrophically while human ships, hastily retrofitted with more flexible, adaptable technology, would maintain at least partial functionality. "How long can we sustain it?" he asked. "Theoretically, up to 6 hours. But there are complications." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What kind of complications?" Naomi brought up a different display, this one showing energy patterns that Marcus couldn't interpret. The quantum substrate isn't just a medium, Marcus. It's responding to our manipulations in ways that suggest, awareness. Awareness? Marcus repeated skeptically. You're saying the fabric of space-time is conscious? Not consciousness as we understand it, Naomi clarified. But there are patterns emerging in our test data that can't be explained by random fluctuations. The substrate is reacting, adapting, almost like an immune system responding to an irritant. Marcus considered this unexpected development. Does this affect the viability of the project? It means we can't predict the long-term consequences, Naomi admitted. We might be opening a door that can't be closed, or provoking a response we can't anticipate. Before Marcus could reply, his communication implant chimed with an emergency alert. Blackwood here. Admiral Thorne's voice came through, tense and urgent. Marcus, we have a situation. The 7th Fleet has jumped to FTL. New arrival estimate is just under 3 hours. That's impossible, Marcus replied. Even their fastest ships can't. They're using a new drive configuration, Thorne interrupted. Intelligence suggests they've integrated technology from multiple member species, something they've never done before. They're adapting faster than we predicted. Marcus exchanged a glance with Naomi. We need more time, James. Prometheus isn't ready. You have 90 minutes, Thorne replied grimly. After that, I need to begin evacuation of key personnel to the deep colonies. We can't lose our entire leadership and scientific cadre. The communication ended, leaving Marcus with an impossible choice. Deploy Prometheus early with unknown risks, or face certain defeat against the Council's most powerful fleet. Begin acceleration of the power-up sequence, he ordered Naomi. We deploy in 80 minutes regardless of test results. As the project team scrambled to comply, Marcus returned to the command center. The tactical displays now showed the projected arrival point of the 7th Fleet, a position perfectly calculated to blockade Earth from all its colonial territories. They're not just coming to punish us, Elena observed as Marcus joined her. They're coming to isolate us, cut us off from our resources. Standard Council tactic for species that step out of line, Marcus agreed. Containment followed by controlled regression of technology and infrastructure. Elena's expression hardened. I'd rather risk Prometheus. That's exactly what we're doing, Marcus confirmed. But there's another problem. Dr. Wright believes the quantum substrate may be responding to our manipulations in ways that suggest some form of awareness. Elena blinked in surprise. Are you saying we're agitating some kind of cosmic entity? Unknown, Marcus replied honestly. But it adds another variable to an already uncertain equation. The next hour passed in tense preparation. Earth's defensive fleet, just 47 ships, moved into position around the planned distortion zone. These vessels had been modified with experimental systems designed to function in fluctuating physical constants, though their effectiveness remained theoretical. Prometheus at 80% power, reported Lieutenant Park. Dr. Wright requests your presence in the project chamber. Sir, Marcus hurried back to the lower level, finding the project team in a state of controlled chaos. The containment field around the reality distortion had expanded, now filling nearly half the chamber with swirling, impossible colors. It's growing faster than projected, Naomi explained, her voice tight with concern. And look at this. She directed his attention to a monitoring station where complex wave patterns pulsed across the screen. These patterns are becoming increasingly ordered. It's not random noise, it's structured. Almost like communication, Marcus finished for her, staring at the patterns. Is it trying to communicate with us? I think it might be, Naomi confirmed. But we have no way to interpret it or respond. A new alert sounded, this one more urgent than the others. Council fleet detected dropping out of FTL, announced the facility's AI. Current position, Jupiter orbital path. Estimated time to Earth orbit, 27 minutes. They were out of time. Deploy Promet. Ambassador Olivia Reyes approached the massive crystal doors of the Emergency Council chamber. Her steps measured and confident despite the gravity of the situation. 8 weeks had passed since Project Prometheus had awakened the entity humanity now called the Interstitial, the conscious force existing within the quantum substrate of reality itself. 8 weeks that had transformed an interstellar war into something far more complex. Ambassador, they're ready for you, murmured her aide Thomas, adjusting the translation device at his collar. Olivia nodded. smoothing the front of her formal diplomatic uniform. Unlike Admiral Thorne's confrontational appearance before the Council, or Captain Reeves's military occupation of Nexus Station, today's meeting would be different. Today, humanity came not as an adversary but as a messenger. The crystal doors parted silently, revealing the emergency council chamber, a smaller, more secure version of the Grand Assembly Hall where this conflict had begun. Only 27 representatives were present, one from each of the Council's most powerful factions. Ambassador Reyes acknowledged Acting Chief Counselor Zaltek, a towering insectoid being whose species had ruled the Andromeda Arm for millennia. The Emergency Council recognizes the representative from Earth. Olivia strode to the center of the chamber, aware of the tension filling the room. These weren't the full council delegates with their political agendas and rhetorical flourishes. These were the actual decision-makers, military commanders, intelligence directors, and prime strategists from the most influential council species. "Counselors," Olivia began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "I come before you today not to continue hostilities but to prevent a greater catastrophe." A low murmur passed through the assembly. Zaltek's compound eyes glittered with something between suspicion and concern. "Bold words from a representative of the species that initiated this conflict," remarked a Vexari delegate, his translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that indicated skepticism. "With respect, Counselor," Olivia replied, "Earth declared war only after discovering the Council's containment protocols designed to deliberately stifle our development. We acted in self-defense, and this historical dispute is not why we convened today," interrupted Zaltek. "Your government requested this emergency session citing an imminent threat to galactic stability." "Explain," Olivia activated a small projector she carried, displaying a hologram in the center of the chamber. The image showed what appeared to be a tear in space itself, the quantum distortion that had repelled the Council's 7th Fleet. 2 standard months ago, a research project on Luna accidentally made contact with an entity existing within the quantum substrate, the dimensional layer that makes faster-than-light travel possible. The Council representative stiffened, many exchanging glances that Olivia recognized as concern, even fear. "This entity, which we call the interstitial, appears to be a conscious force that has existed within the substrate since before recorded history. Our actions awakened it or perhaps simply attracted its attention." "Impossible," declared the Mthunzi representative, an ancient species known for their comprehensive cosmological knowledge. "The quantum substrate is a medium, not an ecosystem. There can be no sentient entity within it." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "And yet, Counselor, your fleet encountered precisely that. The interstitial didn't just disrupt your ships, it communicated with us." She altered the hologram to display the message that had appeared in the Luna Command Center. "I have awakened. You have called. I will answer." "For the past 8 weeks," Olivia continued, "we have established rudimentary communication with the interstitial. It has expressed curiosity about organic life, particularly about how we interact with the quantum substrate through our technologies. And you believe this entity poses a threat?" asked Zaltek carefully. "Not intentionally," Olivia replied, "but our scientists have detected a concerning development. The interstitial is expanding its influence within the substrate, creating ripples that are beginning to affect quantum-based technologies throughout Council space." She changed the hologram again, displaying a galactic map with spreading patterns of disruption. "FTL drive failures have increased 300% in the past week. Quantum communication networks are experiencing growing interference. This isn't a human attack. It's the unintended consequence of a newly awakened cosmic consciousness exploring its environment." The chamber had grown deathly quiet as the implications sank in. The Council civilization depended entirely on quantum technologies for its interstellar infrastructure. If those technologies became unreliable, the carefully maintained order of thousands of worlds would collapse into isolated pockets, unable to communicate or trade. "If what you say is true," the Vexari delegate said slowly, "why come to us? Earth could simply allow this disruption to continue, crippling the Council while your own systems remain functional." Olivia met his gaze steadily. "Because despite our differences, we understand the catastrophic humanitarian impact of a galactic communications collapse. Billions would suffer as supply chains fail, Isolated worlds would face resource crises, and because the interstitial itself has asked to communicate with the Council, this last statement caused an immediate stir. Zaltek raised his upper limbs for silence. The entity wishes to communicate. With us, to what end? It perceives the Council as the dominant intelligence in this region of space, Olivia explained. It has questions about your long-term use of the quantum substrate, which it considers its domain. Are you suggesting, asked the Mthunzi representative incredulously, that this entity views our FTL technology as an intrusion? Not exactly an intrusion, Olivia clarified. More like unannounced visitors repeatedly walking through its living room without acknowledging its existence. For thousands of years, the Council has used the quantum substrate, without ever recognizing it as a habitat for a conscious entity. The implications were staggering. If the quantum substrate truly hosted a sentient force, every FTL journey ever taken had been trespassing through another being's domain. Every quantum communication had been effectively shouting in its ear. What does it want? Asked Zaltek directly. Recognition, respect, and a voice in how its domain is utilized, Olivia replied. The interstitial has expressed willingness to allow continued use of quantum technologies, but it wants protocols established, boundaries, that acknowledge its existence and preserve certain regions of the substrate as inviolate. Heavy silence fell over the chamber as the Council representatives processed this paradigm-shifting information. This could be an elaborate deception, suggested the Vexari delegate after a moment. A technological trick to force concessions. Olivia smiled thinly. The interstitial anticipated your skepticism. It has offered to demonstrate its nature in a way that cannot be falsified. She consulted a small device. In approximately 3 minutes, it will create a simultaneous quantum fluctuation at every major Council installation throughout the galaxy. The fluctuation will last precisely 7 seconds and will not damage any systems, but it will be unmistakable evidence of its reach. As if on cue, the chamber's lights flickered. The holographic displays wavered. Every electronic device in the room emitted a soft, harmonious tone that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. 7 seconds later, everything returned to normal. Urgent communications immediately flooded in from across Council space, reporting the same phenomenon at exactly the same moment on thousands of worlds separated by vast interstellar distances. Impossible, whispered the Mthunzi representative. No technology could affect so many systems simultaneously across such distances. The synchronization alone would require a consciousness that exists outside conventional space-time, Olivia finished for him. Exactly. Zaltek's compound eyes studied Olivia with new intensity. You said the entity asked to communicate with the Council. How does it propose to do so? Given our obvious physiological incompatibilities, it has been learning to translate its thought patterns into formats we can comprehend, Olivia explained. With your permission, I can establish a connection now. The interstitial is waiting. After a brief consultation among the representatives, Zaltek nodded. Proceed, Ambassador. Olivia activated a specialized device developed by Dr. Wright's team on Luna. The air in the center of the chamber shimmered, then filled with swirling patterns of light and color that coalesced into a roughly spherical shape that pulsed with gentle rhythm. The translation matrix is active, Olivia announced. The interstitial can now perceive this chamber and respond to your questions. For a moment, nothing happened. Then text appeared floating in the air above the swirling sphere. I exist. You exist. We have been connected without acknowledgement. This must change. Zaltek rose from his seat, approaching the manifestation cautiously. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I greet you, Interstitial. We apologize for our failure to recognize your existence before now. The text shifted. Apology accepted. Humans recognized me when you did not. They asked permission where you assumed right. I favor them for this reason. Murmurs spread through the chamber at this blunt statement of preference. Olivia maintained a neutral expression, though inwardly she noted the diplomatic advantage this represented. We wish to establish proper RE. Fleet Commander Alexei Volkov stood at the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching as ships from across the galaxy assembled for the historic signing ceremony. 6 months had passed since humanity's war against the Galactic Council had transformed into something far greater. fundamental restructuring of interstellar relations to include the newly awakened quantum entities collectively known as the cognizants. Impressive turnout, remarked Admiral Thorne, joining Alexei at the viewport. 300 diplomatic vessels from Council worlds, plus representatives from 17 previously unrecognized species. Alexei nodded, studying the diverse fleet gathered around Nexus Station. The massive installation had been redesigned as neutral territory, its central hub now housing specialized interfaces that allowed the cognizance entities to manifest in physical space. Not how we expected this war to end, Alexei said quietly. Thorne smiled. Did we expect to end it at all? Earth was outnumbered 10,000 to 1. Our original plan was simply to bloody the Council's nose enough to force recognition of our sovereignty. And instead, we discovered we've been sharing the universe with non-corporeal intelligences that exist in the substrate of reality itself. Alexei shook his head. The philosophers are still trying to process the implications. A gentle chime indicated an incoming communication. Commander Volkov, Admiral Thorne, announced the ship's AI. Ambassador Reyes requests your presence at the pre-ceremony briefing. The two officers made their way through the Prometheus, humanity's newest flagship, designed specifically to accommodate both physical beings and cognizance entities. Unlike traditional warships, the Prometheus featured dedicated manifestation chambers where humans could directly interact with the quantum intelligences without technological intermediaries. In the central conference room, Ambassador Olivia Reyes was reviewing final details with her diplomatic team. The wall displays showed real-time translations of cognizance communication patterns alongside traditional text in multiple languages. Ah, perfect timing, Olivia greeted them. We've just received confirmation that all signatories are ready. The Galactic Accord will proceed as scheduled. Any last-minute complications? Thorne asked, studying the diplomatic updates scrolling across one of the screens. Nothing significant, Olivia replied. The Draconis Confederation tried to insert language limiting human expansion in their traditional territories, but the interstitial itself intervened. It was quite clear that artificial constraints on developing species will no longer be tolerated. Alexei couldn't help but smile at the irony. After centuries of various council factions attempting to control humanity's growth, Earth now had the ultimate advocate, a cosmic entity that could disable interstellar travel with a thought. What's the current status of the quantum disturbances? He asked, referring to the ongoing disruptions that had plagued FTL travel since the awakening of the cognizants. Dr. Naomi Wright, who had been promoted to lead Earth's Cognizance Research Division, looked up from her data tablet. Stabilizing. The interstitial has been remarkably helpful in teaching other entities how to modulate their effects on our technologies. The new drive protocols we developed have been adopted by 87% of Council worlds. And the holdouts? Thorne inquired. Mostly elder species who view technological adaptation as beneath their dignity, Olivia said with a diplomatic smile. They'll come around when their ships keep breaking down while everyone else travels freely. The briefing continued with final security arrangements and protocol reviews. As the senior human military commander present, Alexei would play a ceremonial role in the signing, a symbol of how far humanity had come from being perceived as a primitive, peripheral species to becoming central brokers in a new galactic order. 2 hours later, Alexei stood in the Great Assembly of Nexus Station, an enormous spherical chamber redesigned to accommodate both physical and non-physical intelligences. Thousands of delegates filled the physical seating areas, while swirling manifestations of light and pattern indicated the presence of multiple cognizance entities. At the center of the chamber stood the Accord table, a marvel of engineering featuring interfaces for different biological types alongside quantum resonators for the cognizance. The Galactic Accord itself was displayed as a hologram above the table, its text simultaneously rendered in 372 languages. Acting Chief Counselor Zaltek stepped forward to begin the ceremony. His towering insectoid form had become familiar to humans over months of intensive negotiations. Representatives of all intelligent life, he began, his translator converting his speech into the standard diplomatic frequency. We gather today to formalize a new understanding of our shared cosmos. The Galactic Accord before us represents not merely a peace treaty between Earth and the Council, but a fundamental reimagining of how diverse intelligences may coexist. Alexei scanned the assembly, noting the mix of emotions visible on the faces and postures of various species. Some, particularly the younger council races, showed enthusiasm. Others, mostly representatives of the elder species that had dominated council politics for millennia, displayed barely concealed resentment. They had lost significant power in the new arrangement. For 10,000 years, Zaltek continued, the Galactic Council maintained order through hierarchy and control. We believed this was the only path to stability. We were wrong. The emergence of humanity as a force capable of challenging the Council, followed by the awakening of the cognizance, has demonstrated the limitations of our approach. The swirling lights representing the interstitial pulsed in what Alexei had learned to recognize as agreement. Of all the cognizance entities, the interstitial had formed the closest relationship with humanity, seeming to appreciate Earth's curiosity and adaptability. The Accord establishes 3 foundational principles, Zaltek explained. First, the recognition of all intelligences regardless of form or medium of existence. Second, the right of developing species to determine their own evolutionary and technological path without external constraint. Third, the establishment of protected regions within the quantum substrate where the cognizance may exist undisturbed by technological intrusion. Ambassador Reyes stepped forward to stand beside Zaltek, though physically dwarfed by the insectoid counselor. Her presence carried equal weight in the proceedings. Humanity entered this conflict seeking only recognition and the right to self-determination, she addressed the assembly. We discovered instead that the galaxy is far more diverse and interconnected than any of us realized. The Accord before us acknowledges this reality and creates frameworks for mutual benefit rather than competition. As Olivia spoke, Alexei reflected on the astonishing journey that had brought humanity to this moment. Earth had declared war expecting a desperate struggle against overwhelming odds. Instead, they had stumbled upon cosmic allies that existed in the very fabric of reality, entities that had been overlooked by even the most advanced council species. The practical outcomes of the Accord were far-reaching. Earth would gain unrestricted access to council technologies and trade networks while maintaining complete sovereignty. The previously suppressed containment species would be granted similar freedoms. The Council would transition from a hierarchical structure to a more representative body with reduced powers over member worlds. Most significantly, the cognizants would be recognized as legitimate stakeholders in cosmic affairs, with input on how quantum technologies were developed and deployed throughout the galaxy. The signing process began with Zal, Tech and Olivia simultaneously, placing their hands on the Accord table. The interstitial and other cognizance entities signified their agreement through distinctive energy patterns that were recorded by specialized sensors. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy added their signatures or equivalent acknowledgments. Some did so enthusiastically, others with visible reluctance, but all recognized the necessity of the new arrangement. When Alexei's turn came, he approached the table with a profound sense of historical significance. As he placed his palm on the scanner, he couldn't help but think of the generations of humans who had looked up at the stars and imagined humanity's place among them. None could have predicted that Earth would not only join the galactic community, but help fundamentally reshape it. After the last signature was recorded, the Accord was formally ratified. The holographic display transformed, showing the text spreading outward in a wave of light that symbolized its transmission to every world in known space. As the ceremony concluded, Alexei found himself approached by a Mthunzi elder, a member of one of the oldest council species, known for their extensive historical archives. Commander Volkov, the Mthunzi acknowledged, its crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated formal respect. I must convey a reflection that has occupied my thoughts throughout these proceedings. I would be honored to hear it, Alexei replied, curious about what this ancient being wished to share. In our archives, we have records of 17 previous galactic hegemonies, each lasting between 3 and 12,000 years, the Mthunzi explained. The Council was the longest lived and most stable, yet it has been fundamentally transformed after a mere 3 months of conflict with your species. Alexei considered this.